Pakistan's coastline is one of the most underused assets, and the country now wants to turn it into a regional maritime hub. Almost all of Pakistan's trade moves through these three major gateways: Karachi Port, Port Qasim, and Gwadar Port. Karachi Port alone handles more than half of nation's trade and has an annual capacity of around 125 million tons. Together, these ports form the country's maritime front door, but a front door cannot function as a single hub while each gateway pulls in its own direction. For years, they have operated less like partners than competitors, each maintaining different tariff rules and charging structures that made costs difficult to compare and weakened competitiveness. To knit the three into one coherent hub, the shipping lines can read at a glance. Pakistan turned to standardization port tariffs, bringing these systems under a common transparent framework. Importantly, standardization does not mean identical rates. It means aligning charging structures around consistent principles so similar services are priced comparably. Different infrastructure, operating costs, and commercial priorities, particularly the need to attract traffic to Gwadar, still justify different rates. Pakistan is therefore pursuing tariff harmonization, not a single national tariff. The reform became necessary because years of inefficiency had turned ports into bottlenecks, with cargo often taking weeks rather than hours to clear. With overload trade routes to India and Afghanistan largely severed, Pakistan became heavily dependent on maritime trade, making efficient ports a strategic necessity. It is important to know that port user bills has two components. The first is port authority charges, including port dues, pilotage, towage, berth hire, and wharfage. The second is terminal charges for cargo handling, stevedoring, equipment use, and storage. Lowering port authority tariffs alone will not significantly reduce trade costs if terminal charges remain high, making reform across both layers essential. To address these issues, the government established the Prime Minister's Task Force on Maritime Reforms in August 2024, co-chaired by Admiral Retired Iftikhar Ahmed Rao. It introduced nearly 100 reforms covering ports, shipping, customs, and logistics to create a coordinated system in which the three ports complement one another while competing collectively with regional hubs. Early results have been encouraging. Karachi Port rose from 99th to 69th in global rankings. Port Qasim climbed to 56th, while Karachi handled almost 54 million tons of cargo and Port Qasim 45.3 million tons over the past year. The clearest evidence of reform is the new tariff structure. From March 2026, Karachi Port introduced a 60% concession on port dues, wharfage, and storage for dry bulk export vessels, reduced the transshipment threshold from 10% to 7.5%, and increased the starting discount from 5% to 20%. Vessels with transshipment cargo equal to half their registered tonnage receive a 60% reduction in port dues, while large container ships carrying at least 25% transshipment cargo qualify up to 50% of vessel-related charges. Port Qasim adopted a similar framework without matching Karachi's rates. It eliminated wharfage on transshipment cargo and introduced 25% relief on vessel-related charges carrying between 1/4 and 1/2 transshipment cargo, rising to 50% when transshipment exceeds half of vessel's load. Gwadar, meanwhile, continues to offer targeted incentives announced by Federal Minister for Maritime Affairs Mohammad Junaid Anwar Chaudhry, including 25% lower berthing fees, 40% lower international transshipment charges, 31% lower transit charges, and 1 month of free storage compared with the standard 5-day fee period elsewhere. These lower rates are intended to accelerate Gwadar's development, not depart from tariff harmonization. Pakistan's approach also reflects regional experience. Iran follows a centralized model through the Ports and Maritime Organization, while the UAE uses dominant commercial operators such as DP World and AD Ports with transparent tariff schedules. Pakistan lies between these models, combining common tariff principles with commercial flexibility. Despite significant progress, reforms remain incomplete. Most changes have focused on port authority charges, while terminal charges continue to lag. In January 2026, the government established a committee to encourage Karachi's terminal operators to reduce handling charges. Until terminal fees are rationalized and charging definitions standardized, traders will still struggle to compare the true all cost of using Karachi Port, Port Qasim, or Gwadar Port. Ultimately, tariff standardization is about more than revising rate sheets. It is about transforming Pakistan's three ports into a coordinated maritime gateway capable of competing with regional hubs while unlocking a blue economy estimated at around $100 billion. The framework has also been established. Its success now depends on the sustained implementation and coordination between port authorities and terminal operators.